What if the very person you dismiss, the one you deem unworthy, hold the ultimate power to reshape your empire or shatter it completely? Imagine a titan of industry, whose arrogance has built walls rather than bridges, suddenly facing the ultimate reckoning. He believes he's untouchable, but fate has a cruel sense of irony, sending him face to face with the very individual he thought he could crush. This isn't just a story of corporate power. It's about the silent strength that redefines justice. Do you believe true power comes from integrity, not just influence? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if this story moves you, please hit like, subscribe, and share to spread the message. A poised, formidable woman stepped gently into the hushed, marble-clad lobby of Apex Innovations, a towering monument of glass and steel piercing the Manhattan skyline. Afternoon sunlight streamed through the panoramic windows, illuminating her silhouette against the city's ceaseless pulse. She approached the polished reception desk, where a young woman, Sarah, seemed engrossed in her phone. "Good afternoon," Ava Sterling began, her voice a calm, resonant hum. "I have a 2 o'clock meeting with Marcus Thorne." Ava Sterling. Sarah glanced up, her eyes quickly sweeping over Ava, a dismissive flicker in their depths. "You must be the assistant manager applicant, right? Please take a seat in the waiting area over there." She gestured vaguely toward a cluster of uncomfortable-looking metal chairs in a discreet corner, far from the plush leather seating reserved for other visitors. After a grueling 60 minutes of silent waiting in the opulent, marble-clad lobby of Apex Innovations, Ava Sterling remained a picture of serene composure, untouched by the casual dismissiveness in the young receptionist's gaze. Finally, the heavy oak door creaked open. Emily, Marcus Thorne's assistant, appeared, her expression a mix of annoyance and thinly veiled condescension. "Miss Sterling," she announced, her voice lacking any warmth, "Mr. Thorne will see you in meeting room 3. The journey was short, but the destination spoke volumes. Meeting room 3 was a stark contrast to the grandeur Ava had just left. It was a small, cramped space, barely larger than a storage closet. The flimsy laminate table, scarred with coffee cup rings, was surrounded by hard, uncomfortable plastic chairs. There were no sleek monitors, no high-tech projection systems, just bare, institutional walls. Ava felt the clear, cold message intended for her. She was an afterthought, a checkmark on a list, someone of no real consequence. She stood by the table, her posture straight, a quiet defiance in her stillness. Moments later, Marcus Thorne strode in, his gaze fixed on his phone screen. He did not acknowledge Ava. He did not even glance her way. He simply walked to the head of the small table, sliding into a plastic chair with a dismissive grunt, his thumbs scrolling incessantly. Finally, he looked up, his eyes meeting Ava's with a practiced indifference. "Oh, you must be here," he drawled, a condescending smile playing on his lips. Ava, unwavering, calmly stepped forward, extending her hand in a customary, diplomatic gesture. "Good afternoon, Mr. Thorne," she said, her voice soft, but carrying an unshakable assurance. Marcus Thorne looked down at her offered hand, a mocking smirk twitching at his lips. Without a moment's hesitation, he folded his arms across his chest, leaned back in his chair, and replied coldly, "I don't shake hands with subordinates." Ava did not flinch. She withdrew her hand smoothly, her expression unchanged, her steady gaze never wavering from Thorne's. She saw not just a slight, but the ingrained prejudice she had battled her entire career. She simply took her seat, closing her leather portfolio with a quiet click. 3 other executives, all middle-aged men, trailed in behind Marcus, their expressions mirroring Thorne's thinly veiled contempt. They settled into the remaining chairs, their collective gaze falling on Ava like a burden. Marcus gestured vaguely towards her. "Gentlemen, this is Ms. Ava Sterling, here to evaluate our diversity credentials." His tone was laced with an almost theatrical sarcasm, as if the very notion of her presence was an amusing inconvenience. "I'm sure we'll get through this rather quickly," he added, with a dismissive wave of his hand. Marcus began his presentation, a perfunctory, rapid-fire recitation of Apex's supposed achievements. His words were delivered with an air of assumed superiority, punctuated by dismissive gestures. He spoke of growth metrics and market dominance, yet his eyes often drifted, as if bored by his own monologue. He clearly believed Ava wouldn't comprehend the complex jargon, that her mind was simply not equipped for such matters. But Ava did not interrupt. She listened, her expression unreadable, a quiet intensity in her eyes. When he paused, finally seeming to expect some form of acknowledgement, Ava's voice cut through the air, sharp and clear, defying his expectations. "Mr. Thorne," she stated calmly, her voice carrying an unexpected weight, "I've noted a significant downturn in Apex's R&D expenditure over the last 3 quarters, particularly in your AI division. Could you elaborate on the rationale behind that?" Marcus Thorne visibly flinched. His confident demeanor faltered, replaced by a flicker of irritation, then a trace of genuine bewilderment. He stammered slightly, his gaze darting away. That's a complex financial matter, Ms. Sterling," he scoffed, attempting to regain his composure. "Perhaps not something you need to be concerned with. Or perhaps it's simply not on the agenda for this particular discussion." He waved a dismissive hand, trying to steer the conversation back to his chosen narrative. Ava merely tilted her head slightly, a subtle, knowing smirk playing on her lips. She picked up her pen, opened her portfolio, and began making meticulous notes, her movements precise and deliberate. She saw the discomfort in Marcus Thorne's eyes, the evasiveness in his words. This wasn't merely rudeness. It was a clear signal of underlying vulnerabilities, a crack in the gleaming facade of Apex Innovations. She understood now, with absolute certainty, that this was just the beginning. The tension in the cramped meeting room thickened, almost suffocating. Marcus Thorne, frustrated by Ava Sterling's unwavering composure, his face tightening, a vein throbbing faintly, picked up a coffee mug. "Ms. Sterling," he drawled, dripping with condescension, "I bet you like your coffee really sweet, with lots of cream, don't you? Like our service staff downstairs prefers." It was a deliberate, racially charged jab. Ava did not flinch. Her cool, unwavering eyes met his. A faint smile touched her lips. "Thank you, Mr. Thorne," she replied calmly, "but I take my coffee black. No sugar." Much like I prefer to approach issues, clearly and directly. Her words hung, a silent defiance that visibly unsettled Thorne. His sneer faltered. The other executives shifted uncomfortably. Just then, Robert Jenkins, a senior director, stepped in. He offered a polite smile, extending his hand to Ava. "Miss Sterling, good to finally meet you." Before Ava could respond, Marcus Thorne's sharp voice cut through the air. "Oh no, Mr. Jenkins," he interjected, a smug satisfaction on his face. "I don't shake hands with subordinates. And neither should you." Jenkins froze, slowly lowering his outstretched hand, discomfort spreading across his face. Ava felt profound disappointment, not for herself, but for Apex Innovations. It was the system enabling Thorne's arrogance, tolerating such blatant prejudice. This was a deep corporate rot. She wasn't just here for an investment, but for a reckoning, to expose the organization's true character, the kind that buried its past transgressions. Her fingers moved to her phone. A vivid image flashed, a faded newspaper clipping. Confidential settlement, discrimination lawsuit. Thorne had buried it, but nothing stayed hidden. This was for those silenced. Her decision solidified. With a single decisive tap, she sent a message, absolute. Marcus Thorne, still basking in his perceived triumph, oblivious to the digital spark just ignited, continued to pontificate with empty boasts. He had no idea his empire, built on sand and arrogance, was beginning its catastrophic descent. The message, brief and impactful, was already speeding through fiber optic lines. The first domino had fallen. Deep within the glass and steel towers of Sterling Capital Group, miles away from the simmering tension at Apex Innovations, Daniel Chun, the chief financial officer, sat amidst flickering screens. A single ping from his private terminal delivered Avis Sterling's one-word command: execute. There was no hesitation. With a subtle nod, Daniel gestured to his lead trader. Instantly, a ripple of controlled urgency spread across the trading floor. Fingers danced, phones buzzed, relaying strategically timed orders. Simultaneously, a digital fuse ignited in a discreet operations room. A pre-programmed social media campaign burst to life. Hashtags began to trend. Subtle whispers about Apex's corporate misconduct proliferated across anonymous forums. Stories of unchecked arrogance and stifled voices gained traction, amplifying the coming storm. Within minutes, massive sell orders for Apex stock hit global exchanges. The market sensed the anomaly, a tremor running through trading floors. Panic bred panic as other investors joined the selling frenzy, transforming a controlled strategic maneuver into a cascading plunge. Back in the austere meeting room at Apex, Marcus Thorne remained utterly oblivious, absorbed in his self-important monologue. His phone, resting on the laminate table, vibrated insistently, a silent siren he willfully ignored, blind to the financial devastation unfolding. Suddenly, the door to the room burst open. Emily, his assistant, stood framed in the doorway, her face ghostly pale, eyes wide with terror. She stumbled forward, whispering frantically into his ear, "Mr. Thorne, the stock, it's plummeting. It's gone critical." Marcus's arrogant face drained of all color. He snatched his tablet from the table, his fingers fumbling. The screen, once a beacon of his power, now glowed a terrifying, angry red. Numbers, once symbols of his wealth, became a torrent of accelerating losses. His carefully constructed empire was bleeding value. "What is happening?" he roared, his voice cracking. He shoved the tablet at Emily and bolted from the room, leaving the remaining executives in stunned silence. Avis Sterling, still seated, merely watched, her expression calm, meticulously continuing to make notes. Marcus stormed into his vast, opulent office, the city sprawling beneath him, now a silent testament to his impending ruin. He lunged at the immense wall-mounted screen, which mirrored the horrifying descent of Apex's stock. It was a bloodbath. He pounded his fist on his desk. "Explain this, Emily. Now!" he shrieked, his voice raw with fear. Emily, still trembling, managed to stammer out, "Negative rumors, Mr. Thorne, spreading like wildfire. And there's a hashtag Apex Culture Crisis. It's trending everywhere. Analysts are concerned about leadership ethics." Marcus's eyes, wild with panic, snapped towards the small meeting room, the one he had relegated Avis Sterling to. A chilling, sickening dread tightened its grip around his heart. Miles away, in her own office, Avis Sterling received a discreet ping on her phone. It was Daniel Chin's message. Phase 1 complete. Stock is down 12% in 30 minutes. Hashtag is trending. A subtle, cool, and satisfied smile touched her lips. She slowly stood from the laminate table. The message had been delivered, and Marcus Thorne was finally beginning to understand. Marcus Thorne stood paralyzed in his opulent office, eyes wide with disbelief, fixed on the immense wall screen. It was a digital maelstrom of plummeting red numbers. Apex Innovations, his empire, hemorrhaged billions. The cacophony of frantic phone calls outside signaled impending doom. Emily, composure shattered, re-entered, her voice a ragged whisper over the distant ringing. "Mr. Thorne, it's still dropping. 25% down. In less than an hour. It's accelerating." Her hands trembled. Marcus spun, his face a mask of pure terror. "Who is doing this? What is happening?" he shrieked, grabbing her shoulders. "Tell me, Emily. Now." Emily's breath hitched, her voice a bare thread delivering the crushing blow. "Sir, the confirmation just came." The woman, Avis Sterling. She's the CEO of Sterling Capital Group, the one offering $4 billion. The words were a death knell. Marcus froze, eyes widening in agonizing comprehension. Ava Sterling, the quiet, dignified woman he'd so brazenly dismissed, insulted, mocked. She held the key to his company's salvation, now its utter destruction. Every condescending word, every dismissive gesture, every arrogant smirk replayed, a hammer blow to his spiraling reality. He had orchestrated his own downfall. His face went ashen, a cold sweat breaking out. Ava Sterling, he whispered, a strangled, guttural sound. "Oh God, what have I done?" The heavy oak doors burst open. Chairman David Miller and CFO Greg Miller stormed in, faces contorted with fury and disbelief. "Marcus, what in God's name is happening to our stock?" David roared, trembling. "Explain yourself now." Marcus, still reeling, lashed out, desperately trying to deflect the blame. "Why didn't you tell me who she was? Why wasn't I warned?" Greg Miller stepped forward, his eyes narrowed with contempt. "Warned, Marcus? We've warned you about your arrogance for years. This is the direct consequence of your own actions. Your hubris has brought this company to its knees." Robert Jenkins, grim-faced, quickly interjected, "We need an emergency board meeting. Immediately. This can't wait." Marcus crumpled, sinking into his executive chair, the fight draining. He stared blankly at the red soak screen, the billions evaporating. His empire, his legacy, crumbled before his very eyes. We need to call her," he mumbled, hoarse, devoid of his usual authority. "Ava Sterling, she can stop this." David Miller looked at him with cold, cutting finality. "Marcus," he said, his voice hard as stone, "after what you've done, she won't even take your call. We've lost the $4 billion investment, and our reputation is in tatters. Thanks to you." Marcus looked up, a plea forming on his lips, but the chairman's stare silenced him. He was utterly powerless, stripped of every shred of his former authority, trapped in the ruins of his own making. Chairman David Miller, his face grim, laid out the stark reality. "Marcus," he said, his voice devoid of warmth, "you have severely damaged this company's reputation and jeopardized the livelihoods of thousands. You will present a concrete plan to resolve this crisis or face the consequences." Marcus could only nod, a profound, crushing sense of helplessness settling upon him. Trapped in his office, Marcus Thorne watched the relentless digital avalanche of his collapsing stock. His phone vibrated ceaselessly with new reports of his dwindling fortune. Then, a new kind of alarm blared, breaking headlines. A meticulously prepared dossier, leaked by an anonymous source, exploded across major news outlets and social media platforms. This was far more devastating than the current crisis. The documents detailed a confidential discrimination lawsuit from 5 years ago. One Marcus had personally orchestrated to bury, silencing the victims with hefty, non-disclosure agreements. Evidence, including internal emails and signed affidavits, laid bare his efforts to whitewash the scandal, to erase the pain he had caused. Hashtag Apex Uncovered and hashtag Thorne Exposed instantly surged to the top of trending lists. Marcus watched in horror, his carefully constructed facade of invincibility crumbling around him. There was no escaping this. In a desperate, frantic frenzy, he called Ava Sterling. Again and again. No answer. Each unanswered ring amplified his terror. Finally, a single, terse message appeared on his screen. "Meet me." Marcus Thorne, accompanied by his attorney, Lisa Peterson, arrived at Sterling Capital Group, a shadow of his former self. His expensive suit hung loose on his gaunt frame. His eyes, once alight with arrogance, now held a haunted, defeated look. They were led into Ava Sterling's expansive, sunlit corner office, a space that exuded quiet power, a stark contrast to the boardroom where Marcus had first dismissed her. Ava sat behind her sleek glass desk, utterly composed, her gaze steady and unwavering, devoid of anger, only a profound, almost weary disappointment. Marcus stood before her, like a defeated figure, his usual swagger replaced by a humiliating slump. "Ava," he stammered, his voice hoarse, I'm so sorry. I was wrong. I didn't know who you were." His apology was clumsy, tinged with a desperate plea for reprieve. Ava listened, her expression unmoving. Her voice, when it came, was clear and devoid of emotion. "Mr. Thorne," she stated, "I'm not interested in an apology that hinges on your ignorance of my identity. I am interested in true change. A corporate culture where dignity is inherent, not a privilege. A place where past injustices are not swept under the rug, where legal settlements are not used to silence the truth." She leaned forward slightly, her eyes locking onto his. "You chose to hide. You chose to oppress. Now, you face the consequences. This isn't about me. It's about the truth you suppressed for years." Marcus recoiled, feeling exposed, every fiber of his being vulnerable. Ava slowly opened a thick dossier on her desk, its contents a testament to her meticulous planning. Her voice, clear and precise, cut through the tense silence. "If Apex still desires the $4 billion investment from Sterling Capital, your company must implement comprehensive reforms, far beyond mere promises." Marcus swallowed hard, his eyes wide with a desperate curiosity. What reforms?" he stammered. Ava began to list the terms, each word a hammer blow. "Complete transparency of all compensation structures, eliminating any disparities based on gender, race, or arbitrary factors. An unwavering commitment to equitable hiring practices, ensuring equal opportunities for all, overseen by an independent body appointed by Sterling Capital. Regular, independent audits conducted by a third party of Sterling Capital's choosing, with findings made public. And finally, the establishment of an independent victim compensation fund for those affected by the past discrimination lawsuit you concealed, managed by an independent committee, with strict oversight from Sterling Capital." Marcus exploded, pushing back from the table. "You're interfering too deeply in my company's operations. This is the company I built." Ava met his fury with unnerving calm. "Mr. Thorne, a $4 billion investment is not a casual proposition. We must ensure it does not perpetuate the misconduct and toxic culture you cultivated. We must rectify the wrongs that were hidden." Marcus, desperate, whispered, "Are you trying to strip me of all control?" Ava's response was sharp, decisive. "I am not looking to destroy you, Mr. Thorne. I am offering you the only path to salvage what remains. These changes must be concrete, irreversible, and non-negotiable." Lisa Peterson attempted to interject, to negotiate, but Ava raised a hand, silencing her. "Accept all terms or lose the investment. The choice is yours." Marcus stared at her, his face a mask of rage and utter despair. He knew he had no other option. Finally, he sagged in his chair, a defeated sigh escaping his lips. "Very well," he conceded, his voice barely audible. "Apex will accept your conditions. We will implement these reforms as Sterling Capital demands." Ava simply nodded, her expression unchanged. "This is only the first step, Mr. Thorne," she warned, her voice chillingly calm. "The consequences will be far more severe if you break your word." As he walked out of the Sterling Capital building, his face ashen, he was met by a barrage of flashing lights and shouting voices. A throng of reporters, sensing blood in the water, swarmed him, thrusting microphones into his face. The news of the lawsuit, combined with the stock collapse, was a media-feeding frenzy. He pushed through them, desperate to escape. The atmosphere in Apex Innovation's gleaming boardroom was thick with tension, heavier than the most oppressive storm cloud. Pressure from furious major investors and scathing public opinion had left the board with no option but to act. Chairman David Miller, his face grim, rose. "Gentlemen," he began, "after thorough deliberation regarding the current crisis and recent revelations, the board of directors has reached a unanimous decision. Marcus Thorne is hereby relieved of his duties as Chief Executive Officer, effective immediately." Marcus, seated at the far end of the table, remained motionless, head bowed, shoulders slumped. He offered no protest. The news, though anticipated, still hit him with the force of a physical blow, leaving him hollowed out, consumed by silent fury and profound, desolate regret. His empire, built on his singular, unyielding will, was being dismantled before his eyes. Miller continued, "We have appointed Eleanor Vance, our current chief financial officer, as interim CEO." Eleanor, a woman known for her quiet intelligence and fierce integrity, offered a subtle nod. From her very first moment, Eleanor made her stance clear, summoning Apex's entire senior leadership. Her voice firm, resolute. "We will implement every single reform demanded by Sterling Capital Group without delay. There will be no exceptions, no excuses." Robert Jenkins, a long-serving director, attempted skepticism. "Ms. Vance, we can't simply allow an investment fund to dictate our internal operations." Eleanor cut him off, her gaze sharp, piercing. "Mr. Jenkins," she asserted, "the previous leadership's actions have driven this company to the brink of ruin. We have lost billions in market value and shattered public trust. This is our only chance for Apex Innovations to truly regenerate. We either embrace this change, or we will crumble entirely." Her eyes swept the room, challenging anyone to offer a counterargument. No one dared. Eleanor wasted no time, initiating sweeping, decisive reforms. She mandated complete transparency for all compensation systems, ensuring every employee was valued based on merit. She personally oversaw the implementation of fair and diverse hiring policies, ensuring true equality of opportunity, swiftly removing executives who resisted. She established an independent oversight committee and mandated salary transparency, with a third-party organization handpicked by Sterling Capital Group conducting regular, stringent public audits of Apex's workplace environment. Initially, a lingering skepticism permeated the halls. Employees, scarred by years of an oppressive culture, whispered doubts. But Eleanor's unwavering resolve, open dialogue, and swift, decisive actions slowly chipped away at the cynicism. Town hall meetings became forums for genuine listening, and comprehensive diversity and inclusion training programs were integrated into every department. Slowly, trust began to bloom. Hope, a fragile thing, started to take root in the hearts of Apex's long-suffering workforce. The market, ever watchful, responded. Apex Innovation stock, having suffered a precipitous fall, began to stabilize. Then, as the tangible results of Eleanor's reforms emerged, increased employee morale, glowing internal reports, and a renewed sense of purpose, it began its slow, steady ascent. Financial analysts, once quick to condemn, now praised Apex as a beacon of modern corporate governance, a model of transparency and inclusive culture. From the quiet solitude of her office, Ava Sterling observed every development with a cautious, yet growing, satisfaction. She knew that Apex's transformation wasn't just about financial recovery. It was about proving a fundamental truth, that integrity and equity were not liabilities, but powerful assets. The time arrived for the final confirmation. Ava arranged a formal meeting with Eleanor Vance at Apex Innovations headquarters. As she walked through the doors, Ava immediately sensed a profound shift. The cold indifference was gone, replaced by genuine warmth. Employees smiled, offered polite greetings, a stark contrast to her initial, dismissive reception. Eleanor Vance greeted Ava with a confident, open demeanor. She presented a detailed report on the reform's success, highlighting the dramatic increase in representation for women and minorities in leadership roles, the elimination of pay gaps, and the flourishing of employee-led initiatives that made staff feel truly valued and heard. Ava listened, her expression softening into a genuine smile. "Eleanor," Ava said, her voice filled with respect, "Sterling Capital Group is proud to confirm our full $4 billion investment in Apex Innovations." She emphasized, "This is more than just a sound business decision. It is an investment in your renewed corporate culture, a testament to the belief that integrity and equity are the strongest foundations for true, lasting value." The news reverberated through the financial world. sending Apex's stock soaring. Under Eleanor's stewardship, Apex not only recovered but transformed, becoming a trailblazer, inspiring other tech giants to reevaluate their own internal systems. Far away, in the quiet, isolated confines of his luxurious apartment, Marcus Thorne watched the news reports. His former empire now flourishing under new leadership. A profound, bitter regret settled within him. He saw Eleanor Vance leading, innovating, and recognized that the true power he had once coveted lay not in oppression or ego, but in respect, fairness, and transparency. Months later, at a prestigious global economic forum, Ava Sterling commanded the stage. Her calm, powerful voice resonated as she spoke of ethically responsible investing and human capital, presenting Apex Innovation's dramatic turnaround as a testament. "We each choose our legacy," Ava declared. "I choose equality, diversity, and transparency. I choose to invest in people, in young leaders changing society by giving them real power and opportunity." The captivated audience erupted. Ava knew Apex's victory was just one battle in a much larger war for corporate consciousness. She vowed to continue supporting the next generation of leaders, convinced that only when economic power is wielded wisely, with profound social responsibility, can the world truly change. Her story, and the revolution she engineered at Apex, quickly became a classic lesson for investors and businesses. It demonstrated that integrity, transparency, and diversity are not mere ideals, but the strongest, most resilient foundations for lasting success and true, sustainable value. This was the legacy Ava Sterling proudly leaves, a clear, undeniable message that true power lies not in oppression, but in creating positive, enduring change for all.